Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding you want to buy every single apple in the world. Not just the apples in your local grocery store, but every apple on every tree in every country everywhere. If you actually pulled it off, you could charge whatever you wanted for an apple. $100? $1,000? People who needed apples would have to pay you. Now replace apples with silver, and you have the true story of two brothers who almost broke the entire global economy. This isn't a movie plot. This actually happened. In the 1970s, Nelson Bunker Hunt and his brother William Herbert Hunt were billionaires. Their father had been an oil tycoon, and they inherited a massive of cash. But there was a massive problem. In the 1970s, the United States was dealing with something called extreme inflation. Think of inflation like a high fever in the human body. When you have a fever, your body temperature rises dangerously, making your cells weak and sluggish. In the economy, inflation is a fever that makes the prices of everything rise dangerously, making the purchasing power of your money weak and sluggish. The Hunt brothers watched their billions of dollars melting away in value like ice in the hot sun. They panicked. They needed a safe place to put their wealth where the inflation fever couldn't destroy it. Usually, rich people in a panic buy gold. It's shiny, it's rare, and it holds its value permanently. But here is the first massive problem the brothers faced. At that time in history, the United States government had actually made it illegal for private citizens to own large amounts of gold. If you bought gold bars, the government could literally kick down your door and throw you in federal prison. So the brothers looked for the next best thing, silver. But they didn't just want to buy a few silver coins to hide under their mattresses. They wanted it all. And to get it all, they didn't just walk into a bank. They discovered a financial cheat code that would let them control the entire world's supply without paying full price up front. This cheat code is called the futures market. Let me explain the futures market like you are 5 years old. Imagine your favorite pizza place sells pizzas for $10. You hear a secret rumor that next month the price of cheese is going to skyrocket and those pizzas will cost $20. You go to the pizza guy and say, "I will give you $1 today if you promise to sell me a pizza next month for $10. The pizza guy agrees and writes you a coupon. That coupon is a futures contract. You now control a $10 pizza for just $1. The Hunt brothers started buying these silver coupons by the millions. They were controlling massive amounts of global silver for pennies on the dollar. The people selling the coupons on Wall Street didn't care at all, because normally nobody actually wants the physical silver. Normally, traders just swap the paper coupons back and forth to make a quick buck. But the Hunt brothers were not normal traders. When the coupons expired, the Wall Street bankers called the brothers and asked, "How do you want to settle your account? Do you want your cash profits?" The brothers smiled and said, "We don't want cash. We want the actual silver. Put it in a truck and deliver it to us." The bankers completely froze. A cold sweat broke out across the trading floors. They had sold the brothers coupons for far more silver than they actually had sitting in their vaults. Suddenly, a massive silent panic swept through the financial world. The Hunt brothers started taking delivery of millions of ounces of physical silver. They filled up vaults in New York and Chicago. When those vaults got totally full, they realized they had another terrifying problem. The mob and organized crime syndicates knew exactly where this treasure was sitting. So, in the middle of the night, the brothers hired secret convoys of armored trucks. They loaded millions of ounces of silver onto unmarked airplanes, surrounded by men holding heavy machine guns, and flew it all across the ocean to secret climate-controlled underground bunkers in Switzerland. Because they were buying so much physical metal and refusing to sell a single ounce back to the market, a massive global shortage hit. And when things are rare, the price goes up violently. In 1973, silver was less than $2 an ounce. By 1979, it was climbing toward $10, then $20, then $30. The world went absolutely insane. Regular, everyday people suddenly realized that the dusty old spoons, forks, and tea sets sitting in their attics were worth a small fortune. People started lining up around the block at pawn shops and jewelry stores in every city in America. They were literally melting down their grandmother's precious family heirlooms just to get raw cash. It was a modern-day gold rush, but for silver. Thieves started breaking into suburban houses not to steal televisions,
but just to steal silverware from the kitchen drawers. The famous jewelry company, Tiffany & Company, was so furious about the skyrocketing cost of their raw materials that they took out a full-page attack ad in the New York Times, publicly shaming the Hunt brothers, calling their greed unconscionable. But the brothers didn't care about angry jewelers. By early 1980, they controlled roughly 1/3 of all the independent silver supply on planet Earth. The price hit a staggering $50 an ounce. Their stash was suddenly worth billions upon billions of dollars. They were the undisputed kings of the world economy. But here is the dirty little secret behind their massive empire. They didn't use their own money to buy all this silver. They used something called margin. Margin is just a fancy Wall Street word for a loan. Imagine you want to buy a $100 toy, but you only have $10. The bank lends you the other $90, but they keep the toy as collateral. If the toy's value drops, the bank gets scared and demands their money back instantly. The brothers had borrowed billions of dollars from banks to buy their silver. The insiders on Wall Street, the powerful people running the trading exchange, realized they were caught in a deadly financial trap. If the price of silver kept going up, the exchange itself would go completely bankrupt because they literally could not find enough physical silver to give the Hunt brothers. They were playing a high-stakes game against two guys who had found a way to mathematically guarantee a win. So the billionaires running the exchange did the only thing they could do to survive. They completely changed the rules of the game right in the middle of the match. On January 7, 1980, the exchange executives held an emergency closed-door meeting and issued a devastating new regulation called Silver Rule 7. The rule was shockingly simple and entirely corrupt. It stated that from that exact moment on, no one was allowed to buy silver futures anymore. You were only allowed to sell them. Imagine playing a game of musical chairs, but suddenly the person running the music says only their best friends are allowed to sit down when the music stops. By banning everyone from buying, the demand for silver instantly vanished into thin air. And when nobody is allowed to buy a product, the price of that product can only do one thing: crash. The price of silver started falling out of the sky like a stone. It dropped from $50 to $40 to $30 in a matter of days. And as the price collapsed, the massive banks who had lent the Hunt brothers all that money started to panic. The banks frantically called the brothers and issued what is known as a margin call. They said, "The silver we are holding as collateral is losing its value rapidly. You need to give us $100 million in cash right now to prove you can pay us back." The brothers, despite being billionaires on paper, didn't have $100 million in raw cash sitting around. All of their money was completely tied up in the plummeting silver market. The date was March 27, 1980, a day that would forever be known in financial history as Silver Thursday. The Hunt brothers defaulted on their massive loans. They couldn't pay. The price of silver plummeted below $11. But this wasn't just a bad day for two greedy brothers. The massive Wall Street banks and brokerage firms had lent the brothers nearly $2 billion in total. Because the brothers couldn't pay it back, those banks were now completely broke. The entire United States financial system began to crack in half. If those banks collapsed, regular people's savings accounts would vanish, businesses wouldn't be able to make payroll, and the economy would instantly plunge into a dark, devastating depression. The government realized that these two eccentric brothers had accidentally built a financial nuclear bomb, and it had just detonated in the heart of Wall Street. The panic in Washington, D.C. was absolute. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, had to completely halt his schedule and set up emergency phone calls. They could not let the giant Wall Street banks die because the collateral damage to normal citizens would be too catastrophic. So the government orchestrated a massive, secret bailout behind closed doors. They forced a group of major banks to give the Hunt brothers a new, massive $1.1 billion loan. But this loan wasn't to help the brothers get rich again. This loan was specifically designed just so the brothers could immediately pay back the Wall Street firms, saving the financial system from total annihilation. It was a forced rescue mission to stop the economic dominoes from falling. In the end, Nelson Bunker and William Herbert Hunt lost absolutely everything they had built. They were dragged into court, sued by everybody they had done business with, and found guilty of illegal market manipulation. They were fined tens of millions of dollars and forced to declare bankruptcy. They were permanently banned from ever trading commodities again. The men who had tried to corner the world ended up selling off their prized racehorses, their historical art collections, and their precious remaining silver just to pay their massive debts. The story of the Hunt brothers is a chilling reminder of how the financial system actually operates behind the curtain. It shows us that extreme wealth can build an empire out of paper, but it also proves a timeless lesson. When the house always wins, and you start beating the house, they will simply rewrite the rules of the game to ensure your total destruction.